This Choircast podcast is brought to you by the book Used to Go to Church, Rethinking God on the Front Line of Life's Tragedies by Nick Velicities.
You know, we've
As a
been
first
around for a
responder
long
chaplain
time
for over
now, and
23
we've had many
years,
different
Nick blends
lineups,
firsthand accounts of
and
tragedy
Heritage
with
Happy Hour is
opportunity for
only
raw
getting bigger
self-examination
and
and
better,
reflection.
with guest hosts
For the
like Rainn
spiritual
Wilson,
but
David
not
Bentley
religious
Hart,
who want to
John
pursue
Fugel
God
Singh,
outside of the
Candida
walls
Moss,
of
Elaine
organized
Pagel,
religion,
and
Used
of
to Go to
course
Church is
December
an
Rose.
invitation to rethink
2024
faith
and
and open up to
2025
a
are turning
life
out to be
centered
our
on
best
grace,
years
mercy,
yet.
and love.
Check us out
Find
on
it today
iTunes,
on
or
Amazon.
Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's Heretic Happy Hour. We hope to see you soon.
Liminal, a word 1,000 miles wide but small enough to fit into the present moment. It describes an in-between place. We live most of our lives within this space, not quite ever arriving at our idealistic final destination. We spend so much of our energies on our best impersonation of who we wish we were, until we can't. But in sneaks a dark night of the soul, or perhaps a mystical experience. Our way of being has an error loop introduced. Today we call that deconstruction. Welcome to the Liminal Living Podcast, where we teach you how to be here, how to traverse these spaces, and where we can go if we remain humble, open, and honest.
Great.
Yeah. Rob Bell, welcome to the Liminal Living Podcast.
It's great to be back. What was it, a year ago?
Yes, 1 year ago.
I love it.
Yep, that was cool. Before we get going, I am performing a funeral today at 2:00, and I wanted some fashion advice from the Rob Bell. Would you indulge me?
Okay.
Okay. Here's my suit coat. Is this blue, right?
Oh,
nice
interesting.
Blue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have two ties, and I have this nice paisley tie right here, right there.
Okay.
That's what I normally wear. And then
We're
it's
literally discussing what you're going to wear to a funeral. Is that correct? Just so I
Yes,
understand what's going on here.
in 2 hours, yes.
Okay.
And then, but for pastor appreciation, I got this guy.
Is that coffee
This is coffee paraphernalia
on the front of a tie? Okay.
on the front of a tie. So, officially, Rob Bell's advice, which tie do I wear today to the funeral? Coffee, paisley.
Is there a third option? No, I would
just,
do the first one. I would not do the coffee
chest
one.
hair. Okay,
I
I
would
was
not
going
do
to go
the
chest
coffee
hair.
one.
No coffee
one.
one. All right, I'm going on the side. There we go. It's official. Thank you for your fashion advice. Hey, you recently went on a road trip. Did I hear you went cross country with your son or something?
My son and I drove across the country in a 2014 Prius.
Wow. So you got good gas mileage.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
I couldn't believe how awesome the mileage was. Yeah, he moved from Los Angeles to Brooklyn.
Wow.
So when he was talking about moving, and then he was talking about taking his car. And as soon as he was just thinking about taking his car, I had this oh, I would love that. I would love to go. But I just waited because, And then he was like, you want to come? And it was just the best. It's just so incredible. It was really, really incredible.
What's something that really stands out on that whole trip? Was it something you saw or conversations you had?
So he's 24, and he has this deep awareness that a chapter is ending, in which he's very clear on. It's also very mysterious how we know what we know. And he knows the next chapter is there. And so he wraps up his Los Angeles life, and the New York life hasn't started. And there's this in-between space, this liminal space that happens to be the United States of America.
Symbolic.
Like the liminal space is Kansas.
Yeah.
And watching my boy, watching this man, this becoming a man, work through all of the emotion, the existential, this is my life here. I just said goodbye to everything that's familiar, and yet I was done. It was over. And it was great, but it was also over. And all I have is a next step, which is this new place, which is in the Premier League for more difficult places to live in the world, and yet it's like a tractor beam drawing me. And watching him process it. I always say, like with our kids, the software comes in upgraded. Just watching him, sometimes we would talk for 4 or 5 hours straight as just process. He would just processing and anticipating and talking about what it might be and then what it was. And then also silence because there's nothing to say. Like how much of the human experience but it slowed down. Do you know what I mean? Like hour after hour after mile. It was for me, it was like a transcendent experience of how we move through life. We get the sense that something has come to an end. We get a sense that something new wants to be birthed. We're in between. We could name for you exactly why we're doing it. And we also are like, what am I doing? Like this polarity of the known and the unknown, the clarity and the opaque mystery of it at some level. No, it was, and even that sense that oftentimes you look back on a moment and realize, oh, with history, you look back and are like, oh, that was a huge turning point. And then other moments you're in them and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be talking about this forever. Like some moments you just know you don't need the benefit of history to know this is a giant. And it kept reflecting back to me. I drove across country the other way to start a new life around that age. So you can't be with somebody who's going through something like this and not find yourself in it. And, it was I did a whole thing about it on this new Patreon I'm doing. I did a whole thing about what it was like. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's cool. All the way.
2014 Prius.
Wow. All the way. How many miles would that be? About 3,000 or 4,000?
Oh goodness, it was. Yeah, and then his entire life possessions are 3 guitars. He's a musician. 3 guitars, a pedal board, a rug, 1 suitcase, 1 duffel bag, and 2 small boxes with art and books. And we would get to a hotel, like a $104 hotel in Green River, Utah. I would go up to the front desk to see if they have a room, and he would get that luggage rack with the arched metal, and he would load, because he's used to touring, so he's used to, music equipment is notorious for being stolen, so he's always used to emptying the van anyway. But he would empty all of his possessions onto this luggage cart and wheel it down the hall, and it was just this, and so I would hold the door, and then he would wheel it through, and I would have gotten the room, then we'd go down the hall, and he'd wheel all his possessions in, and it was like, yeah, it's like your kid taking his shot.
Yeah, that's really, exciting.
Really, really something. Really something.
Yeah, those liminal times I found helps to not have a lot of baggage with you.
Yes, exactly.
Because you're going to be moving and changing. So.
Yeah, it was like a master class from my boy, from my son.
Yeah.
It was really something.
Yeah, there's some mental baggage you got to get rid of too, that you just got to when you're in those liminal spaces, you almost have to I got to set this thought aside and this value aside and this thing I've always held on to that I believed. I got to set that all aside because it can't come with me. And then you just shift and change and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the geography is all speaking to you about, oh, we're leaving that. Okay, got it. And watching him talk it all through, and then watching him also just let it, like even the loss of what was is like a form of grief. So letting it pass through the body, just giving it the space it needs. Oh yeah, it was something.
Yeah. Well, I'm noticing those themes in your book that you just released. First of all, you surprised you surprised me. I had no idea the second book was out. I listened to your podcast and you're like, oh yeah, quiet release this thing. And I was like, what? When did this happen? How do you just quiet release something and then just passing statement on your podcast? Oh, by the way, I dropped a book. That was absolutely brilliant.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. And I went right there. I got the audio version, so I got to hear you reading the book, which is perfect. Last time I read the book because the audio wasn't out yet. But this time I heard you narrate the book, and I couldn't tell if like my favorite part was when you made yourself laugh or if you made yourself cry. Oh, it was just perfect. So audiobook is preferred from Liminal Living. That's what I say. Oh, so how did you write and release a book in just a year? That was pretty cool. Because we were talking about your first book just last year. Yeah. And then boom, 1 year later, you got the second one out. How'd that process go?
Isn't that fun? It's a bit like a spell. Like I get caught up in the story and I know where it's headed, and I also on any given day don't know where we're going that day. So in some ways I orient my life around when it's time to start typing. I am living, like right away in book one, when I was writing book one, I was like, oh, I know what book two is. I can see book two. And I also right away was like, oh, this is interesting. You could read book two first. Mm-hmm. And then be like, wait, there's a book one? And then also I noticed right away, wouldn't it be interesting if you read book two and you in it sort of unsettled your understanding of what was happening in book one? Because you might have to rethink because there's a bunch of things that get projected onto her that might not actually be true. So right away, and obviously book three will be similar in the sense that I was like, oh, this is books 1, 2, and 3 that could be read in any order, and then book 4. So in some senses, it just keeps expanding around me, and then I just pay attention to what is the next part of the story, and I love there's the characters and their names, like when Shucks and Whoosh appear. It's love actually is the answer. I love it. I love what's happening, and I know that it's doing something to me subconsciously because I can't connect it with like really literally things in my life, and yet it's such a full-bodied being caught up in something experience to write the story. I know it's doing something to me. That's why it's so enjoyable to talk to people like you, is it helps me make sense of why it matters so much to me.
Yeah.
It'd be like February. It's February, and I'm describing the architecture of houses on the planet Meebs. Like, why does this matter so much to me? Yeah, I'm as mystified as anyone.
Yeah. Well, is there something that you discovered maybe about yourself, or is this something about your world there in Ohio that as you wrote this book, or even read it like for the audio, that you like narrated it?
Yeah, one of the things I really loved about it is it's not all over the universe. It's this strange planet that sort of accidentally got settled, and it's hyper particular. There's this girl and there's this woman Gurge who we're not quite sure even who she is. They live in these shures on a shav. They go to the stalls every 17 days. She has like 2 friends. Then she apparently gets very good at unclogging drains.
Yeah.
So she kind of goes to work as a plumber, probably, I don't know, the age 8, 9, 10. She starts working as a plumber. There was something about how tight and local and particular that I found really compelling. Like, she'll venture, like when she meets those girls that she hates with the perfect hair, they're like 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I did find that, as opposed to book 1 that's like all over these different planets and it hops around among very, very wide, and then it goes to Furtis and the bakery and gets very, very, very local and specific. This starts the other way, which, yeah, if I were to read into that, I was on airplanes for years doing tours and all over the world. And I ride my bike to my studio in the mornings, and I'm here, and pick my daughter up from school and go to the bakery. I live in a small town up against a mountain, and it is as wide as the universe to me. I went all over the place. Now I don't go as much all over the place.
Yeah, the hyper particular is a universe in itself.
Super, super, super compelling to me.
Yeah. Like if you look at the cosmos in a grand scale, it's massively huge. But then if you look down on, quantum scales, the atoms, it's also super huge in this small particular kind of way. The space in between particles and everything. So yeah, you can explore the universe of this particular. I really liked that theme through the book as well, because it was just, it almost had like that Signs, that M. Night Shyamalan movie Signs, where it's like this alien invading the earth, but it takes place all from that one little farmhouse in the middle of the cornfields. It's like, it's so particular, but you're also getting you had the global perspective, the cosmic perspective in the other book. And then this one just really just hones in on just one particular place. And I felt at home there reading it and reading about it. You mentioned those girls that Nunez hated. Not many books have made me, there's 2 books that have made me laugh out loud: Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and yours.
Oh.
And when she dropped the clog on their head and walked away, I didn't see it coming, and it just felt so good. And then your laugh that followed it, I was like, oh gosh.
And I love, she's like maybe junior high-ish, where the emotions are so strong anyway, but like she's encountering groupthink for the first time. I love how she doesn't have conditioning or programming. She there hasn't been anybody around to tell her this is how it works. Mm-hmm. And so she bumps up against these girls who have some sense of she says, I don't know what that word normal means, but I can feel the energy of it or something. Yeah. Like some idea that there's a thing that you need to be, and if you're not, then you're lacking or unworthy or something. And it's like paroxysms of violence within her. She's so offended. And I just love that. Like, she's like, I hated them. She doesn't even know what to do with this volcanic hatred that's arising within her. That's just so delightful to me.
Yeah. And she's not apologetic for not knowing either. She's just like, I don't know that word. You're going to have to explain that. And she just matter-of-factly, she has a confidence in her naivety that was really, I don't know, it drew me to that character. Like, oh, this is who this Nunez was from first book. This is cool.
Right, like we would say she's from the sticks, but then she's just, whatever it is, just goes for it, and then feels all the feels, and then picks herself up again and throws herself into the next thing. It's just, what a... yeah, it's just really entertaining.
I really liked how she kind of named herself. That was a really interesting part, where she sees her favorite yak, Noon, coming over the hill and shouts, "Noon, yay," every day. And so they're like, oh, that's her name, I guess, because that's what she says. I thought that was really cool. I've never heard that in a story where someone like names themselves, like, and I didn't have a name before this. It's like, no, I didn't.
It's interesting you say that, because that was the first thing I knew about the book, is that was the first line of the story.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So I remember writing book 1 and realizing what book 2 was going to be, and making like a pages document and just typing, I named myself. I was like, oh, the whole first part of the book will be this very cumbersome, awkward narration of how this young girl named herself, and then how she learns that she named herself, and all of her existential questions about what was my name before I named myself. So there needs to be some character who's like, what do you mean? Well, so I didn't have a name until I started talking, and the characters, and that somebody would have to say to her, was that a problem? Well, I don't know. I wasn't like, somehow all of that was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. It starts with this convoluted, whole cumbersome thing about her name, because names to me are the way into characters, and then the spelling, and then the realization later that even that was a misunderstanding of the spelling of somehow all that, because you think about, you're talking to somebody and you forget their name, you're mortified. And you see somebody you haven't seen in a while and you remember their name, or you remember their dog or their kid's name, and they're like, it means like, I never get over like a love and deep fascination with names. I can't. I'll literally meet people and be like, wait, what's your name again? Like, say it. Where's that come from? How do you spell that? Names to me are like, oh, they're just incredible.
Yeah, that's like the theme of identity. That's really close to my heart. Trying to find that. We want others to give us our identity. We're always looking for that mirror to mirror back. Who am I? Right. And I think that is like psychologically healthy in a way. Like we need to have those mirrors of other people in our lives. But, when we make it someone else's responsibility to tell us that we have value, or to tell us that we have an identity, we can really get into the weeds really fast there, because no one can really do that. We have to name ourselves in a sense. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Right. And these moments of liberation where we have clung so tightly to a sense of identity, and then something happens, some ego death or some disorienting, devastating experience, and in the pain of it, we're freed from some attachment that was too heavy, and we're like, what is a Tom? Mm-hmm. What is a Rob? What is this? Who is this I who's amming here? Who is this sense I have? And then somebody called me Rob, and everybody else does. That the name is both grounding and centering. Yeah, I'm Rob Bell, you're Tom. But then there's also this gift of, what even is a Tom? Like, who is this here? What are these hands and feet that can free you at times?
Yeah. She kind of like innocently and naively presents her own identity to her community. This is who I am. And then they accept it and mirror it back. And I like that exchange better than not having one and then asking them, who am I? And then adopting someone else's understanding of you. That kind of reversal I thought was really cool. That distinction was neat.
Yeah. And I have a friend who's very, very wise and astute, who really, really, really did not like the book. Like, had a very strong, I don't relate. She was like, I don't relate. And it was interesting, she's like, I literally lost sleep over how it so upset me. And Nunez, she couldn't relate because Nunez has nothing got placed on her shoulders about what a woman is, what's expected, where the power lies. She wasn't told it's a man's world. She does have these experiences of the gaze, and she knows something's up with that. She doesn't want anything to do with. But there is some way she moves unfettered by the tribal codes of, this is what you're allowed to do, this is what you're not allowed to do. Women don't do push-ups. Women don't win pull-up contests.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Great. That was a great scene.
Yeah, so she and I, as the book progressed, I found that to be really compelling. Somebody who it appears like it's a lonely, isolated valley where she's just sort of out there, and it's kind of almost, it has an element of melancholy, sadness to like she and this woman who make chairs all day, but it also means there's a bunch of stuff she doesn't have on her shoulder. So when people use words like normal, she's like, what? And even throughout the whole book, I loved the amount of times when somebody would say something, she'd be like, hold on, stop. What are you talking about? You don't get to use words I don't know.
Yeah.
She has absolutely no problem. You think about now when somebody's like, that scene in Batman 4 where he's talking to the commissioner, and you're standing around talking to people, and you're like, yeah, I don't know what scene you're talking about, but you're not going to be like, sorry, yeah, no idea what you're referring to. Sopranos, where there's blah, 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 and everybody just goes, and you, as opposed to just, I have no idea what you mean. I have no idea what you're talking about. Or people use a term, like a NPR, New York Times term. You're like, I don't, deconceptualization of the fetus? I don't know what that, like, what are you talking? We don't just, so I just love how she's like, stop. It really has influenced me. Like, I don't anymore just sort of nod. I'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Could you explain?
Yeah. There's a freedom in that. I grew up hearing all these words. I remember, like, when I was a kid, little kid, there was a car that went down our road with a baseball bat, and they were, like, smashing all of the mailboxes as they went down. And I remember sitting out in front of our smashed mailbox with my uncle and my dad, my mom, and they were talking about a Beamer. A Beamer drove through here and did all this stuff, and I'm just thinking to myself, what's a Beamer? I don't even know what a Beamer is. To this day.
Right, is a Beamer the act of beaming a mailbox? Is that what that is?
It was some kind of vehicle, but I was just nodding my head like, I guess the adults know what they're talking about, but I had no idea, and to this day, I still don't even know what a Beamer is, like what kind of vehicle they were referring to. I have no idea. BMW. Oh.
Yeah, Beamers.
See, that was the thing. I should have spoke up in the moment and said, what's a Beamer? What's a Beamer? Tell me.
Yeah.
And so many words like that growing up. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but never spoke up. Knew I could have taken some advice from Nunez.
That's funny.
I like, there was a spot when she hears that her mom abandoned her and never held her, and then there's a quote that like just pulled the tears out of my eyes. It says, in that moment I learned how to not cry, because the only way to hear something like that and not be reduced to pure undistilled heartbreak is to stand at a distance from your very own self. Now that was a powerful phrase, because as grief, is there a way to disassociate with grief that's not outright denial, but perhaps maybe take the loss in doses your heart can handle? Does that make sense?
Yeah, right. And that's and what I loved about her narration is she's almost giving you the play-by-play of the feeling and then also the observation of the feeling.
Yeah.
Like I can see now how I was learning something and probably wasn't that healthy, what I was learning how to not do. And yet that's how it went down. So she's like narrating with no judgment. This is what it felt like. The observation of the full humanity while also participating in the full humanity, and then you're noticing of your full humanity is, I like how she's bouncing around among, there's the experience, then there's your observation of how the sense, perception, feel, emotion. Then there's you noticing the sense, perception, feeling. Then she's telling you the story, so she's looking back. So it's a memory of a feeling, of a noticing, of a sense and perception. That just to me becomes very interesting. That's what we're doing here. We're humans, so we're feeling. You'll be at a funeral today. You'll be up close to the experience of the loss of someone people love. You'll also be noticing them. You'll be noticing everything happening within you, what it's pulling up within you about grief. You'll also be running the thing, so there'll be lots of toms going on.
Yeah, that's a good observation of it. A
couple hours.
Yeah,
and if you over-identify with the thought, feeling, sense, or perception, the feeling of unworthiness, therefore I am unworthy, anger, therefore I am angry, and you lose the, oh, look, there's anger arising within me. But if you are only the observer, you become detached from the human experience, and you're just, I just noticed it arise. I just noticed it all. None of it actually affects me. Then you miss out on the sexy, bloody grit of this experience we're having here.
Yeah.
We're in bodies. We're death and rebirth are all around us. There's war and elections and great food and joy. Like it's this like thing that is the stuff of life.
I really like that distinction of being embodied in the moment and yet observing yourself being embodied in the moment, so that you can still be an experiencer and not disassociated or detached from it in some way, because our nervous system's going to remember that moment. It'd be nice to let it do its thing in the moment and not suppress it all the time.
Correct. So you're feeling all the feels. You're also aware that, I'm feeling all the feels here. And those are all happening within this I am here that is just pure awareness. It has no thought, feeling, perception. It's the noticing and awareness of all the stuff that's happening. Yeah. Fascinating how all that works.
Yeah. I've noticed, like, some people are very self-reflective. They're self-aware, but they also have a lot of guilt and shame because they're so self-aware. So I've learned that, like, if your self-awareness surpasses your self-compassion, man, you just like beat yourself up because you see so much of yourself, and you have to like bring those self-compassion levels up to self-awareness levels. Do you know of any practices that help you increase your self-compassion to match where your self-awareness is?
Yeah. How else would I learn how to be Rob Bell? Oftentimes the mind is clinging to expectations that are absurd. How does a person know about money without handling money? How does a person know about anger without getting angry? How does a person know how to forgive unless you have experienced something painful that you are invited to forgive? Like, how would I ever know how to be Rob Bell? And that the mind creates templates. For example, a person says, I should be farther along by now. Well, the mind creates a template of linear time that it then judges itself against. So you're punching yourself in the face, and then I would say you're punching yourself in the face and then searching for fists. Your mind came up with the idea that there's some timeline you're on and you should be farther along. You should be more like, anytime you're shooting yourselves, the mind has created a whole world of suffering. And as soon as you do some very basic self-inquiry, basically beginning with, is that true? And that it always comes back to loving what is. So you're right, the self-compassion and the awareness can also be converted into, oh, this is where I'm at. This is me.
Yeah.
What were my expectations here? What did I think was going to happen about being human? Did I think it worked some other way?
I got to show you something. Not fashion advice, but I got this watch.
Yeah?
Can you see?
It's blurry.
Oh,
What's
it's blurry. Every single hour says the word now.
Oh, I was wondering what it said. I was like, oh, it looks like it says the same thing every hour.
Every hour is now. It's only ever now.
Best.
Isn't that awesome?
That is the best.
I got it just the other day from one of the congregants here. And
that is really good. I like that.
Yeah, but you got to really know how to read a watch, because it's not going to tell you the hours.
Yeah.
But it also reminds you it's right now.
Right.
That's all you got. That's all you got is right now and right here. So.
That's good.
Well, Nuye, she thought she just belonged to everyone. She had like this naive happiness. And then she learns that her specific someone abandoned her, and she has that existential crisis moment there. It's like, we encounter our naivety through these crises moments. And that is a wounding and a defining at the same time. My question would be, how do you not accumulate harmful trauma in the natural defining woundings of a life that then have negative impacts on how you live and how you relate to people?
Yeah, talk about the stuff of life. That's what we're all doing. So we're learning how we became us. So if you can turn it from what is wrong with me to what is this? What has it come to show me? What has it come to illuminate? Then our personal histories become like explorations of a sort. Even patterns where I'm like, why do I always do that in those moments? Can become easily an underbelly of shame. What is wrong with me? Or it can become a door into a really, really compelling room. Where does that come from? How did that get shaped? And you start pulling on that thread. Or as I would say, like you follow it back to its cave. Whatever it is, it feels like a haunting, or it feels like it's something stalking you. Why does this? You follow it back. Where did that come from? And obviously we have all sorts of guides, and there are people who this is what they do. They help us. You discover how did I get here? How did I become? How did this seed get planted? Yeah, especially around things like trauma that obviously get rooted in the cellular nervous system, particular anxieties, these spaces where we can go into those places. Yeah, we can do this work.
Yeah,
it can be done. We can learn why we're like that or why we do that.
I like that. Follow it back to its cave.
Yeah,
there's something very.
So like the person who would say what kinds of things people say, like, I always da 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 da, or I have a long habit of, or this is my pattern, or I always end up in these kinds of relations with people. Okay, well, you good with that? Or why do you think that is? Do you want to learn? Because you can. Do you, and half the awareness of the pattern is how you break the pattern. Do you want to be free from that? Do you want to not do that anymore? Because it's a good chance you could go into the heart of that and probably find all kinds of stuff about yourself. And of course, it would be terrifying and scary, and your knees would shake, and you'd be all wobbly, and there'd be like sweaty palms. And then there would be moments of clarity, and you would be like, oh my God, that is revelatory. And then you would integrate that new understanding. That would take a while. And it's actually quite thrilling because you'd be like, oh, I don't have to carry that around. And generally, it'll have like a duh dimension to it, where you're like, my father did this, my aunt did this, my mother did this, my siblings responded this way, and I responded this way. How come that is so obvious now that I see it? So the whole thing can be a disempowering, passive, I just went through horrible suffering and trauma, and I'm just sort of carrying this around like cement blocks. You're just sort of carrying around in the back of your car for some reason. Or you can turn it around into, that's what we do as humans. So we follow this stuff back to its origins, and we discover how we became us, and we get set free from things. It's like astonishing. And you get like later in the game, and the new understandings don't stop coming. I call lately I just made up this term, meta arcs, like arcs in your life that are like 30-year arcs or 40-year arcs that are ultra uber simple. Like, oh, I came from that, and I've been like things we've been actually following or working through that we never knew. Even people who are like, oh, I came from a home where there wasn't any money, and I have been on a 30-year, what's it like to have money? And now I know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they build like some giant house, or they go on the ultimate vacation and have like a dull thud. Like they're at the end of something. They're trying to figure out what it is. Oh, I've always wanted to know what it was like to have money to do whatever I wanted. And something about that last car, trip, house, fund, whatever thing, now I know. That's what it's like. The number of people I've worked with who have like a, now I know.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like a long, what's it like to be educated? What's it like to be good at something? Discover like that there was a long arc, or a phrase I've noticed a number of people, and me as well, find helpful is, oh, I was playing something out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was doing. I was playing something out. Yeah, now I know what that's like. Got it. I had to play that one out.
Yeah. It's almost like we don't think we deserve to be happy, so we always put the happiness at the end of an accomplishment. But then we get there and we're like, oh, it's not here. So it must be, it's like always 3 steps
just
away.
Pick the next thing. And then, or you can back up and go, oh, notice this pattern. I keep picking things. And it's almost, and even noticing the pattern, you can become much more tuned into, oh, got it. And then you can see the good in it. You can see the underbelly of it. You can see the shadow of it.
Mm-hmm.
I get these stories. I get these novels, these plays, these paintings. I get things that ask for expression. And it really brings me great joy to do this. It can also I can get all bound up in it. And who am I if I'm not making stuff? And I just know that about myself. Yeah, this is like everything else. I can get all upside down and tail in a knot because my sense of self gets all bound up in what I'm producing and making. And then I now know what those patterns are, essentially, and I can find my way to we're here. It's Tuesday. What are we doing? Well, let's talk about that book. Okay.
We're talking about the book.
And then it goes back to holding it loosely. For some reason, this Rob Bellness really, really enjoys to just keep spouting off about things, making things. Okay, we can go with that. And it goes back to the loose, free. Yeah, we do what we do.
Yeah, we can really wrap up our identity, which like our value as a human, and what we're able to produce for other people.
Absolutely.
And like even, my wife and I, we've been raising disabled son for 21 years now. And, there's like a romanticizing and a glorification of like hardships and suffering and all this stuff that comes naturally in Christian communities. And then you're like supposed to adopt this, identity as you're the strong one, or you're the wounded one, or you're the, like, oh, I would never be able to do what you do. And there's just like, I learned like maybe 5 or 10 years ago to just reject that, like, oh, you're so strong, you're so whatever. And I'm like, actually, no, this is really wearing me out. I just tell people that now. It's like I have a lot of chronic health issues now because it's too much for me and I can't do it. But I used to just romanticize it and just indulge in it and say, oh yeah, God's given me what I need to get through whatever. And now I just flat out reject that identity as the strong one and just say, no, actually it's too much and it's taking a toll. I think there's a freedom in just being able to own that and say that without clichéing stuff away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, yeah, you're a human being. This is what it's like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is what it's like.
Yeah. I think Nunye is like, she has that, she named herself and she presents herself to her community, and they accept her. They accept the community or the identity that she's handed out, and she's not necessarily adopting, you're this one, you're that one, you're this person, that person. She just figures out one day that she's good at removing clogs out of plumbing and just goes and does it. And then that comes to an end. And then she's, watching a baby and going to school with Brigida. And then that comes to an end. And, then she's working in the cracks.
And then the stonkings show up.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're getting jobs. She's like, what's a job?
What's a job?
That sounds good.
I love that. Oh, gosh. That was good. I think my favorite line of the whole book, I paused the book to write it down. My favorite line, the decisive moment of searing judgment is upon you. Oh, such a good line when that guy is running off with Gurge's chair and she's just like, no, this is not how this is going down. And she just sprints off and then just belts that out before tackling him to the ground and just pins him there. And she doesn't even know if he's dead or not. There's this. That was a good moment. That was a good moment.
And there's these, in the following days, she can't stop thinking about the body. Mm-hmm. She's like, did I kill a man? She can't. And then all of a sudden, Gurge is like, I'll go with you. She's like, wait. Yeah, she's like, you've been looking up the hill. You want me to go with you? I laughed so hard when they get up on the hill and the body isn't there. And Gurge, what does she say when she's like, yeah, it's always better if there's not you don't have a dead body. Things are always better if you don't have a dead body on your hands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, there was just something so primal in Nunez that took over and almost possessed her. And she even has a deeper voice when she says that and just tackles the guy. And then she has that oh crap, did I kill this man?
And she feels his shoulder blade on her toes. Just this.
Yeah, that was very descriptive.
Visceral, repulsive.
But I related so much because I am very uncomfortable with the emotion anger, have been for a long time. Been trying to get a little bit more comfortable with it. But when it does come out, it's like that Nunez experience. And then it's like, how many dead bodies did I leave behind? Not physically, but how many people did I wound in that moment? And then you look back and regret that the very primal response kind of a thing. Is there a way to hold primal anger towards injustice that doesn't demonize or dehumanize another person?
Sure. Just in my experience, narrating is how. So you aren't just unleashing, you are narrating the feelings of unleashing, which then puts you as the witness to what's happening within you, which makes you far less likely to act in ways that later you'll regret. So with a kid, the parent who erupts with their kid and just goes on a bender, yelling, saying a bunch of stuff that later they're going to have to, because as opposed to the parent who goes, wow. As a dad right now, I got a whole bunch of stuff swirling around within me because it's really important to me that I have this sense one of the things is to show you how to whatever. And I don't see that happening. And so a part of me, but I also have a sense maybe there's something I'm missing here. And it could be really easy for me to say stuff that I'm narrating is a really interesting. Wow, a part of me right now just wants to throw something or break something. I can really feel that emotion is very strong, or just start yelling for no particular reason. If you start narrating, it allows the feeling it's feeling the feeling, but it's also observing the feeling. And it's a very strange, wonderful move.
Yeah. Oh, I had a memory when I was a little kid. I was using my little brother's squirt gun. I had a little green plastic squirt gun. And he's like, I want it back now. And I felt like this hot sensation like erupt all the way up to my head. And I slammed that squirt gun down on the ground in rage, but I missed the grass. I hit the concrete and the thing shattered. And I looked at all of the pieces. My dad comes out on the porch and he's just like, what did you just do? And I was just like beside myself of like this Nunya experience of like, what did I just do with that whole thing that erupted in me? And that was a defining moment in my psychological development that says my anger is dangerous. Don't feel it ever again.
Oh, right.
You know? So that was like a defining moment. And I've been trying to like, I guess, express it in different ways. And that narration part really, I think that really helps. I wish I would have heard that 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
And it actually gets you to the authenticity of the anger and it also gets you to the absurdity of the human experience and the humor of it. Like, my God, I am like so angry right now about this asshole at the next booth over in the restaurant whose shirt on the back says, I clean my AR-15 with liberal tears. That happened to me in a restaurant. And like, if you narrate that for whoever you're having dinner with, I literally have propulsive, violent feelings that are more violent than an AR-15 towards this guy at the next table over who I have to eat my flat noodles. I have to eat my pho with looking at this T-shirt. I've noticed how often it helps me get at and out the anger, and also just the absurdity of the human experience. I am cranked up about this.
We're taking a quick break here mid-show to let you know of an opportunity that Choir is offering. Are you deconstructing your faith? It's tough, believe me, I know, I've done it. But what if you didn't have to do it alone? Imagine having guides like Jim Palmer, Kristen Dumais, Jennifer Knapp, Brad Jerzak, Brian Zahn, Paul Young, and more by your side to help. I know I would have loved that on my journey. Well, now you can. Head on over to choiracademy.com, link will be in the show notes, and register for their Square 2 class using the promo code Liminal, and you will get 10% off. This course and community are designed to help you navigate your journey with wisdom and support, all because you're a fan of the Liminal Living podcast. And now back to our show.
Yeah. Oh, this happened yesterday. My daughter has a teacher who is uninformed about basic political things and was spreading information and misinformation, and in the class spreading misinformation. And my daughter took the teacher on, and she was like super, like she is like watching her find her voice is pretty awesome. And apparently her friend said that the next class was taught, hey, things got a little heated in the earlier class. And I found myself like heated, meaning a student pierced your bubble of ignorance. Like I found myself like, and then just we're like I'm literally like secondhand anger.
Secondhand anger, yep.
About misinformation, when in fact my own progeny is like speaking up. And I was narrating that for her, like, wow. And then, but even in narrating it, but then you're there in the class, like actually raising a ruckus. I love it.
You gotta feel proud about that moment too.
Well
like you
done.
Got anger towards the teacher, but so much.
As my son would say, I got shooters all over the place. I got you in the classroom.
Oh,
you're in the classroom taking care of it for us. We're good.
Oh, man. Being a human is really hard that way because it's just so messy. Like you can go from feeling joy, contentment, belonging one day to the next day feeling rage and anger and loneliness, and it's just it's just so up and down. Like the part where I don't want to give away like I don't want to do any spoilers, but Noon experiences a very personal loss. And she goes home to Gurge and cries, and she says, I do not like this setup. I didn't ask to be here. I was just born, and I have to figure it out. Like, this is so hard. That part really got to me. Has it always been this hard to be human, do you think? Or is it more of like, is there like modern expressions that make it harder? I guess what makes it so hard?
That's the thing about your question, which is so enduring and central. This is a central human question, but what's fascinating about the question is when you start questioning the question, hard is a judgment about it that is both true and utterly subjective. So like I had a couple of years ago an experience that was very, very similar to what you would call a near-death experience. It checked a lot of the same boxes as a near-death experience. And central to the experience was, do you want to keep being Rob Bell? And the question in the experience, do you want to keep being Rob Bell, was distinctions are the engine of creation. So you wore that shirt, not your other shirt. You painted the bathroom that shade of green, not that shade of green. That for there to be any manifestation of anything, if there's going to be any form and not just a formless mass of spirit, that is the extent of reality. If reality is going to be anything that we know to be reality, then it has to be this, not that. So left, not right, up, not down, white, not black, black, not white. That the moment you move from formlessness into form, the form will have to be over and against something. So colors need each other to be colors. So if you're going to have a creation, it's going to actually have to be a creation, which means you raise the possibility of an Israel-Hamas. You raise the possibility of Democrats and Republicans. You raise all sorts of things. As soon as you have separation, then if it's going to be a world, it has to be a world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because as soon as you say yes to one thing, you said no to 10,000.
Yes. So you are right. It goes to the heart of the human experience. And essentially, all of the people throughout history that we have most admired had somehow made peace with being human and found something that discovered that underneath all of those divisions and differences, it's all one thing. So you could call that source, nirvana, God, you could call that. But then it does not in any way not make it painful, and it doesn't mean you don't have tears, and doesn't mean your body doesn't get cooked. But you then, this is why you move into people talking, then you move into the playing field, you move into the game, you move into the absurdity. This is why all the best teachers always end up with the parable, the riddle, the koan. It's like they're in on the actual secret, which is this is totally real. Your son's challenges are 100% real and actually take a phenomenal amount of energy. And look at this thing. We're here. You're here. I'm here. Look at this absurd, heartbreaking, mysterious, euphoric. And then all the different, what is the sine wave you were saying of highs and lows and good and bad all just become, yeah, we're human. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Think about the art, think about the voices, think about the stories that have most, like if you, Tom, are at a dinner party and there's some guy going on with his stories who it's just been up and to the right the whole way. And yeah, I was just good at a lot of things, and I started making money, and everything I touched just made money. So then I tried doing that. Turns out I was awesome at that as well. something within, like a tuning fork, something within you is like, my God, this guy is the most boring. Like, or you think about a television show where someone says if you checked out whatever television show, so you start watching the show and like 2 episodes in, you're like, yeah, no, I'm done with this show. Generally, it's because there was something about the conflict, either it was absent or you didn't find it compelling. So we find ourselves, like you're talking about, in these situations that are like genuinely agonizing. And yet, when we move outside of ourselves, all the things that we most affirm, most are moved by, most inspired by, are the very things that have serious sine waves.
Yeah. That's interesting.
In our house, we call it advanced player mode. Advanced player mode is when, whatever the situation is, you have moved from the separation of I'm here, they're over here, this person is annoying, they're a problem, or this situation is bad, I need it to be good. This problem just is such a pain in the ass, I need it to be solved. And you move to advanced player mode, which is, there's obviously something else going on here. This obviously has come to liberate me. Whatever this is has come to teach me or show me something. It's come to break me out of something so that I might be tuned into something even more beautiful or compelling or mysterious.
Yeah.
So then you begin to build muscles around transcending the dualities. So let's take something right now. Let me think of something. Oh, well, like you think about Israel, Hamas, and like the height of human violence and entrenched systemic generational violence. What's the thing happening here? Oh, you bomb us, we bomb you doesn't work. Like it doesn't work. And it creates entrenched patterns. And if you do actually want to raise up a generation of terrorists, then bomb hospitals. If you actually want to create more terrorists, bomb a school. That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it. So it's awful. It's the bloodshed, the heartbreak. It's also, the invitation in here for humanity is to see this on almost a cartoonish scale, the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
And imagine a world where we move in different ways.
I think you said years ago, you said, like, I don't remember if it was you, but I think it was. It's like trying to remove a vase in the room with a shotgun.
That's a good one. That is a good one.
Yeah.
So so going back to what you were saying earlier, you are 100% fully acknowledging the pain, loss, heartache, bloodshed. You are also assuming there is some invitation in it. Mm. There is something else going on in it. And in many ways, art is how we transcend our pain. It's how we give expression to what has happened when we have moved in and through the experience to some greater truth that lurks within it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good stuff. There's good stuff in that. And I think one of the sources of conflict and difficulty that we're facing right now, as you said, the mythologies work harder than we ever could. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at modern day, we've lost a lot of the common mythologies that provide us meaning. If you look at John Vervaeke's work, there's a crisis of meaning because, a lot of the mythologies that we used to collectively agree on have kind of been dismantled, fallen apart. The world isn't 6,000 years old. It's not, lots of things. Right. What mythology might be the container for a human meaning making that would step out of the Middle Ages and into the modern mystical world that we're going to inhabit? What mythologies will be
Well,
important?
They'll come from all different. They'll come from all different directions. Like even biology. All of us human beings are each a cell, and the cell all forms a body. So if I tell you, hey, we tested your leg and you have some cancer cells in your leg, would you say, yeah, well, it's just my leg. It's not like I need it. You'd be like, oh my God, I need to get this. This is a problem. So perhaps you're going to see, I would argue you already are seeing humans realizing that issue over there is my issue. It's all the same body.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have imagery from biology about systems and cells and the life of the whole. Or, you think about music and harmony and all these different notes that all work together and the whole thing. Or even the number of ways people are talking about narrative and understanding a story, even like the healing from trauma being understanding your story, understanding the story. Anything political that doesn't make sense, I would simply say if you look around and find the political climate mystifying, the political is the amalgamation of the personal. One is just when you get a bunch of personals together, you get a political. So, like in America right now, there are lots and lots of people who find the modern world disorienting, would like to return to a perceived ideal of stability. Well, I can see that in my own life. And just want certainty. Don't even need facts, just need certainty. It's like a childlike daddy. So somebody who comes along and doesn't have any sense of truth or facts, but is certain. Yeah, that speaks to a deep, deep, deep childlike need. So when you, with your New York Times brain, are going, yeah, but that's like makes no sense, is completely incoherent, and completely avoids all the facts. Yeah, you don't get it. This person, like you think about at the heart of Trump, it's daddy. I got it. I got it. I got it. And literally the opponent, well, I just don't know what it would be like I just don't know what kind of chaos would happen if she was in charge. She's literally from law enforcement. Literally a DA and then an attorney general. Literally has a Glock. Literally has spent, 30 years enforcing the law. I don't know. Could get crazy. But this felon, that'll bring some problem. So it's just like...
Yeah. I think politics can be a surrogate for the mythology at times.
That's what I'm saying, is what you're saying about the mythologies is if you begin to read it, then you can see some stories work, some stories don't. Some stories are a perfect way to not deal with the shadow. Even this fascinating thing happening right now where this idea that people would use this phrase, American exceptionalism, the greatest country on earth with a straight face. Have you ever said that to someone in France? You ever said that to someone it's like the weirdest thing ever to say. But you can even see, like when the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan and the Taliban using Russian rifles from the 80s drove out the most powerful military superpower the world has ever seen. That's Taliban 1, America 0. Like you can see there's profound mythologies about the American experiment that are in trouble. Yeah.
So, I think we're in for a rocky few years too.
Yeah, absolutely, because these mythologies get clung to and they die slowly. Oh, and so once again, you can let them die and trust that there'll be other futures and we'll be fine. Or you dig in your heels and you fight and resist and go kicking and screaming into the new world.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I love the book. It was amazing. Where do you want to send people to go and buy the book? Is Amazon the best place? Easy place?
My site is the best. Sure, Amazon or my site has the books and art and merch around the books and all kinds of other things.
Okay, so I will put that link down in the comments. You got a Patreon that you just started. You want to tell people about that?
Just great. I had no idea it would be this enjoyable. But yeah, it's all sorts of extra additional Robcast episodes and writing and interacting with people. And yeah, it's and people interacting with each other, and people will say something, then I'll do a whole bit on it, and then we do another round. And yeah, it's really great. Really been enjoyable.
Awesome. Well, this conversation has been very enjoyable for me. It's been good. I have a friend, I told I was talking with you, and he's like, tell him I said hi. So Aaron McConnell from Colorado says hi to Rob Bell.
Well, hey, Aaron.
I had to do a shout out for him.
That's great.
But thank you so much. When book 3 comes out, I'm definitely going to be right here. I'm in. I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to send you an email saying,
maybe
please,
we'll surprise you again.
About it. Yeah,
maybe we'll surprise you again.
I'm going to have to keep my eye a little bit more pierced on this one. Like, I want to look for this one. Well, awesome.
Excellent.
I gotta get my suit on, and I'm not wearing the coffee tie. So thank you for your fashion advice as well. We're
just here to help. My work is done here. Great talking to you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.